Good evening and welcome everyone. It's wonderful to have you with us here today. My name's Helen Ford and I'm privileged to serve as the CEO of Jesuit Mission Australia. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Jesuit Mission Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to the elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I'd also like to offer a really heartfelt thanks to the Jesuit Mission family who have been so generous in supporting our Ukraine emergency appeal. We've raised nearly $500,000, which is just extraordinary. Your generosity is providing vulnerable communities who are fleeing the Ukraine with emergency shelter, food and other essential items, medical escorts, translation, and most importantly, accompaniment and friendship. Our project partner is Jesuit Refugee Service Europe, and they've been coordinating the emergency response by mobilising support from offices across Hungary, Poland, Romania, Macedonia, Southeast Europe, as well as within Ukraine. And I'm delighted to welcome two of our friends this evening, our Jesuit partners, Fr Alberto Ares, the Regional Director of Jesuit Refugee Service Europe, and Fr Marius Talos, who is the Director of Jesuit Refugee Service in Romania. And both these gentlemen are managing the Jesuits' emergency response on the ground in their respective areas. So welcome Father Marius and welcome Father Alberto.
Hello,
thank you,
welcome.
Helen.
Thank you very much, Helen.
It's great to have you with us and we appreciate your time is quite constrained at the moment given what you're managing. I'd also like to introduce my colleague, Zach Martirana. Zach is our Communications Officer, and I'd like to hand over to Zach now to kick off the webinar.
Thank you, Helen, and a warm welcome to Father Alberto, Father Marius, and our webinar attendees. To those of you at home, we definitely want to hear from you, so please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit your question. Father Alberto, let's start with you. It is so tragic to see what is unfolding in the Ukraine, and I imagine that Europe is in shock. What is the current situation on the ground?
Thank you, Zach, for this opportunity to share with our friends of Jesuit Mission Australia. Well, the situation, probably most of you know that after almost 3 months of conflict in Ukraine, UNHCR estimates that more than 6.3 million refugees have already crossed the border in search of shelter in the surrounding countries. Since the beginning of the crisis, since the beginning of the war, the Humanitarian and International Cooperation Organization of the Society of Jesus have been in contact with the Jesuit network, with all the Jesuit network, in order to coordinate a humanitarian emergency. As Helen was saying, the Jesuit Refugee Service Europe is coordinating the response for the reception and accompaniment of the refugee population by JRS national offices in Ukraine and the neighboring countries. JRS, also and Soviet network, have activated their emergency appeals through the NGOs and mission offices of the Society of Jesus in Europe, Australia, of course, Canada, and US. No? At first, work is developed both inside Ukraine to support internally displaced people, as well in countries that are receiving refugees population, as Helen was mentioned, no? Poland, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, and in a second line, responses are being prepared from Bosnia-Herzegovina, Croatia, Kosovo, Macedonia, Serbia, and now in most of our JRS offices around Europe.
Thanks, Father Alberto. And at the same time, it's also amazing to hear of the Jesuits' swift emergency response. So once war broke out in the Ukraine, how quickly did JRS Europe respond to this situation?
I would say not only JRS, but the Society of Jesus activated the emergency in less than a week. It's, for me, it was something amazing. Father Arturo Sosa was actively supported the emergency response at all times. Father Generals called from the very beginning for a common response, met with an immediate response. This is the first time ever that all the institutions and actors of the Jesuit family have worked together in this way on an emergency, especially from JRS and the Savior Network.
Thanks, Father Alberto. And Father Marius, how many refugees has JRS Romania received already since late February?
Well, thank you for the question. First of all, I'd like to say that Romania, after Poland, has been receiving for the last 3 months the biggest number of Ukrainian refugees, namely over 900,000 people crossed the border between Ukraine and Romania. Out of them, 80,000 remained in the country, and JRS attended of them more than 10,000 under different aspects of their needs and assistance, from welcoming to integrating them. So I'd like to provide some more figures. Out of these 80,000 people actually settled in Romania, more than 22,000 are children. And from the people that crossed the Romanian borders weren't only Ukrainian citizens. There were actually more than 45,000 people coming from other nationalities, from other countries, especially young students studying in Odessa and other towns from Ukraine, trying to turn back to their countries such India, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, and so on. So this is not only a Ukrainian crisis, but also it concerns the whole world.
Father Marius, I know for many of us around the world, our hearts break when we see the images in the media, seeing the atrocity that's occurring in the Ukraine. But I think one of the really hard things to see and witness is the families that have been separated, you know, mothers and children from sons, brothers and husbands who are often staying back to fight. I was wondering whether you could share with us, once the women and children arrive in Romania, what state are they in? Is there a sense of relief or fear or shock, or is it just pure trauma?
Well, if I was supposed to resume in one word what I feel on their respect, is being shattered. They have shattered families. They have shattered hearts, and they have also shattered dreams concerning their future. And in front of this shattered reality, the most emergent need is to build up well capacity of operational capacity for welcoming, build up stability of the heart of these shattered families in order to dream what to do for them, their needs, and so on, and to build up a future for the next months and years for all those communities. So in front of destruction and shattering dreams, we have to propose and to promote building up opportunities.
Father Marius, we're so glad that you and your team are there to welcome these people with such open arms and give them such hope. Father Alberto, I know that you've just come back from spending some time with Father Marius and visiting other JRS programs in the neighbouring countries to the Ukraine. and also met some of the refugees. Could you share with us what some of the practicalities that JRS is offering the refugee families?
Thank you, Helen. Yeah, it's been like a long journey, although it was just a week, but I came, you know, with all this energy and hope, no? JRS welcome displaced people as they look for a safe place, no? You know, the most to eat, rest, to warm up after days of traveling in dangerous conditions. Normally, we serve as a transit point, as many want to continue their journeys. No, some of them are now coming back, but in general, they want to move. No, we provide beds, food, medicine, and access to laundry and bathrooms for all. No, we also accompany them with psychological and pastoral support, as many of them have relatives and friends normally in the area where hostilities are ongoing, which is a serious psychological burden for them. No? Jesuit communities, our Jesuit communities also have opened their houses from the very beginning to welcome arriving refugees and provide them with shelter and initial support, including children with cancer and other serious health concerns. I can tell you that the first time that I went to one of our communities in Warsaw, in Poland, I could listen, the small kids playing, at the end of the corridor, and it was for me, it was really, really happy to be in one of our communities and to feel hospitality there. To meet the growing needs, also JRS is also collaborating with other religious congregations to find additional accommodation options. It's a reality also. We want to work together, as Pope Francis is inviting us. We want to provide hope to those whose lives have been abruptly disrupted. So we are already developing long-term plans to provide a scholarship to children in Jesuit schools and kindergartens. And JRS continues to be present at the borders, like Father Marius was explaining us, and in big cities also, to ensure accommodation, first necessities, legal advice for those who want to seek asylum. And also JRS is really committed to integration. It's amazing, the great job that, for example, JRS Romania are doing in this matter.
Thanks, Father Alberto.
Thanks, Father Alberto. And just a quick reminder to our webinar attendees to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit your question. And we'll go into Q&A time in the next 10 minutes. So Father Alberto and Father Marius, you just recently touched on this, Father Alberto, but apart from providing immediate emergency support such as food, shelter, and essential items, how else is JRS Europe and JRS Romania assisting these refugees in the long term? So apart from education, or maybe you could just go into a little bit more detail of how they're helping in the long term.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think, first of all, I think to respond to the Ukrainian crisis, the Society of Jesus is centered on the refugee person. Try to have like a holistic response and approach to all the necessities. Sometimes we are focusing just in one aspect or in one side, and we are trying to find like kind of holistic approach. Probably Father Marius can give more details, because his teams are working really on the fields. But in terms of our approach, we are working around 4 approaches, we can say, that define our route to accompany, serve, and advocate, for the rights of the refugees and migrants. So the 4 verbs that the Pope is providing us, in our way of being in touch with refugees and migrants, to welcome, to protect, to promote, and to integrate, is one of the 4 principles that we are trying to connect with the long terms. Father Marius, I think he's going to present in a more concrete way these things. This solidarity must be concretely expressed at every stage of the refugee experience, no? From the purchase through journey to arrival and return, no? In the whole process. This is therefore necessary to ensure that the intervention is holistic and remains holistic, making this strategy a living one, subjected to frequent reflection, evaluation, and discernment. So I can say also, Zach, that in terms of for me, no, the key elements in the long term can be, one of them is accommodation. The people need a place to stay. Now we are trying, the families, the governments are being really supportive, but we need, long-term accommodation for the families, a good place to live, for the kids to grow. No? Job is another good element and necessary element to live. No, all of us, is something. Education for the kids is a kind of crucial thing, and I would say also in the medium and also in the long term, psychological support for all the traumas that they are facing right now.
Thanks, Father Alberto. Father Marius, did you have anything to add to that in Romania?
Yes, in particular in Romania, we try to convey to the refugees 2 4-letter messages. The first one is Yana, you are not alone. Whereas the second one is Wana, we are not alone. What do I mean by that? The first message is the one of solidarity, welcoming people into flats, apartments, communities of hospitality, and then providing the first need necessities, emergent ones. The second step is the one of protecting from the minor and vulnerable people, especially the people with disabilities. We have to reckon with several hundreds people coming from Ukraine with different disabilities, both psychomotorical and of other kind. We tried to welcome once 50 people into a religious house, which was made available for this eventuality. We ensured facilities of transportation in other countries. We provided them social tickets or vouchers for more than 500 social tickets only for people with disabilities. And then we cope with providing medical services, although we are very limited. Then promoting is the third step, and it involves the campaign of solidarity in mass media, next to other NGOs, and first of all to the authorities, in order to sensibilize the social society, the civil society on these issues, which are hard to be recognized and supported by a civil society which is already enduring this pressure of the crisis for more than 3 months. And finally, the question of integration in mid and long term, providing housing, schooling, and services of integration. These are the 3 main challenges. And in the same time, I was saying, we also convey the second message, Wana, we are not alone. Father Alberto spoke about holistic approach, but we aren't holy. And we cannot cope with the whole bunch of challenges. So we rely heavily on Jesuit networks, Jesuit Xavier networks, JRS Europe, other provinces support, like the Jesuits in Australia and from other countries. And we are very grateful on your support, because not only you help us to help other people, but you are completely involved in this endeavor. So we are not solists in this mission. And this is the core message from WANA. We are not alone. Thanks to you.
That's a beautiful message, Father Marius. Thank you for sharing that with us. I've got a question for both of you now, but I might start with you, Father Alberto. I'm just interested in, we see in the media that Europeans are very welcoming to the Ukrainian refugees and others that are coming from Ukraine. How is the atmosphere with the rising numbers, and where do you think that will go into the future?
Thank you, Helen. I think this is one of the, the golden question, nowadays. The emergency in Ukraine is, I would say, this a milestone in the way Europe is approaching the rising number of refugees. I think, fortunately, the EU agreed in record time to activate the temporary protection directive to help people fleeing war in Ukraine. It's been amazing, like the directive became immediately applicable on March the 4th, and now offers immediate protection and a clear legal status to millions of people. I think, thank God, the response from the civil society has been overwhelmingly positive, with many families reaching out to our offices to offer places to stay, food, and donation. I also want to say that in recent weeks, we have noticed how this feeling of hospitality is also diminished because of the fatigue also in welcoming people, and it's also, we need to know how to do it also. However, I think refugees and migrants, especially from other continents, are treated as scapegoats and do not receive the same treatment in Europe. Moreover, migration is often instrumentalized to generate fear and polarization. I think all the negotiations on the new pact on migration and asylum here in Europe have barely advanced, as have the rights of the many men, women, and children forced to flee their countries and seek refuge in Europe. Again, pushbacks and deaths in our borders are still a daily reality. It's something that we are facing, especially across the Mediterranean. People seeking protection are treated most of the time as security threats, now more than ever. The example of the protection and reception, I think, of Ukrainian refugees in Europe show us that if the political will is there, the lives of the refugees can be saved and improved. So this is like, I think, a strong message that this time and the emergency in Ukraine is bringing us this opportunity.
Thanks, Father Alberto. Father Marius, what's the situation in Romania, and how are the local communities feeling about the rising numbers?
So in terms of using colors, I'd say our situation is not monochromatic. You see my painting above my head, which is called interference. So it was a magnificent opportunity for the whole civil society to collaborate for the first time in our history among the Orthodox majority, with the Catholic minority, but also with Protestant denominations. Regardless our Christian or religious convictions, we could collaborate and welcoming people, which is a huge step forward. Now there is always a backside, just as Father Alberto named before, in terms of fatigue, in terms of fear for the future. And here I see two big challenges. The first one should be the question of distributing this huge mass of refugees in Europe, and also help them come back, because for the biggest part with the people I have talking to, they want to turn back, and our mission won't be fulfilled until we help them to turn back and to rebuild the country. So it's not only the NGOs task, but also for the European Union to think this fifth step of this crisis. The mission won't be fulfilled until they won't be helped to turn back, because their wish is to regain their country.
Thanks, Father Marius. Sorry, Zach.
That's all right. So just a final question from me. Could you both please share a story of an example of an individual or family that has been supported by JRS? And we can start with Father Alberto, and I'll just share my screen because I've got a photo to share.
Thank you, Zach. Yeah, thank you. I think probably it's one of the most important things, no, like to share the lives of the people, and no, I would like to share with you a light of hope, no, that saved the life of a family, but I could tell you so many others, no. Let me start with Vitalik. Was born in Chernobyl, Ukraine. Probably Chernobyl came to our mind with all the the explosion and all this thing, and was hosted in Spain for 12 summers when he was a child. Every year during the summer he went there, staying with a Spanish family. Over the years before the war, he lived with his family in Kiev. After the first attacks, they decided to leave for their village, in the countryside, together with their parents and siblings. There they took refuge. But again, the whole family sets out to flee as their village turns into a chaos. In their way to the border, they took refuge in our JRS Ukraine shelter, as you could see there in Lviv, before crossing, in the western part of Ukraine. The women and children cross and the men return, among them Vitalik. Alessandra, his wife, and the two children arrive in Warsaw, in Poland, and they make contact with their Spanish family by phone, the one who took Vitalik in and with whom they remain closely connected. In that time, JRS Poland supports Alexandra and the children, and JRS Europe puts them in contact with people in the Spanish government, the Ministry of Inclusion, and the miracle of arrival at Barajas, or the airport in Madrid, is work. Their Spanish family was waiting for them there, thanks to the coordination with JRS and the authorities. I can tell you that in just 1 week, this family left Kiev, crossed Ukraine, and arrived in Spain. In just 1 week, the children were in school. JRS could support in this process. I think this shows that it can be done. When there is a political will and solidarity, the miracle of hospitality can happen. I think we have a lot to learn from this, especially from the experience of this family, but from many others that we are facing and experiencing in all these days. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Alberto. That's fantastic to hear a story like that. I'll just share one more photo of yourself meeting some of the refugees.
Yes, it was just playing with them also in Nowy Sącz in Poland. It was great to be with them. Also for the moms who is telling us, I don't know how grateful are the mission of JRS that are providing this support, and they help our kids to disconnect a little bit on the reality of the war, because they are always asking us about our relatives in Ukraine, the war, the people death, so they can have a safe place where they can play, enjoy, laugh.
Beautiful. Thanks, Father Alberto. And Father Marius, you've also sent some photos through, so I'll just keep going.
Yes, thanks. I'm avoiding using the concrete real names of these persons, not only for fear of human trafficking, which is a real danger, unfortunately, nowadays, but also because of tokenism, not using concrete stories with real names. Let us say that this family first came to our Jesuit refugee shelter asking for accommodation. And in the same day, there was a Cameroon young man which has just received a subsidy for his own accommodation in Bucharest. And as he met this young family, a mother with 3 children, he said, I want to give my money for their housing because they meet more urgent necessities. We were overwhelmed by his generosity. The mother started to cry, and eventually he said, no, I have a better idea. What would you say if I provided a dancing class for this family and for other mothers and children? And you can't even imagine that 2 months later, every week we have twice a week this dancing class provided by a former refugee young men from Africa for these Ukrainian in terms of solidarity. And speaking of shattered families, this lady couldn't bring her whole family in Romania, not only because of his husband being kept for the army, but also the elder boy who has been 18 years old just 1 week before starting the war. Even getting injured by one of his knees, he couldn't cross the border. So this kind of situation, which are unfortunately multiplied by hundreds in our country, starts from nightmare and ends with beams of hope. And speaking of this transition, let me add just one more story without pictures. In one night, I was in the central station of Bucharest waiting for several families from Odessa. And there was a small girl crying because she heard some alarms from the ambulances running around the Bucharest during the night. And she thought they would announce a next bombing, just as she experienced the previous nights in Ukraine. The following day, we provided them breakfast in our accommodation center, and she asked her mother, Mama, when did I really dream? Last night with the bombs alarm, or this morning with the breakfast? And due to your generosity, we can transform this nightmare into a real dream of hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Marius. I'll just stop sharing my screen. 1 second. Has that stopped? No. There we go.
Yeah, just 1 second, Zach. It's really important what Father Marius was saying about privacy. I just want to mention that the names that I use I changed the names, so that we can realize, really the life story of the people of the family, but also preserving the privacy and the needs of the families. Just to mention this. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for clarifying.
And thank you both for such moving stories. They're hard to hear, but I think seeing the difference that you're making in these people's lives is quite extraordinary. And it's nice to know that often we feel very helpless here in Australia, that we can contribute in some small way to your work. We have a number of questions from our webinar participants, and I might just go through some of these. This question's from Alison Burt. Hi, Alison. We used to work together. Alison says, Father Alberto and Marius are leading such important work. She asks, what's sustaining you both, and how are you looking after yourselves and continuing in such challenging times while trying to make a difference? Might start with you, Father Marius.
Well, as I said before, one also means we are not alone. First of all, we feel that God is a God of surprises, as Jerry Hughes used to say, and there are also Eastern surprises, not only the war surprises. So we rely on this steady assistance in terms of solidarity, of support, of accompaniment also on your behalf, and this is really supporting us. Then another very important thing is to make collaborators out of the refugees. We actually doubled the size of JRS team in the last 4 weeks by involving Ukrainian volunteers in service of interpretation, in service of direct assistance, because we weren't enough and enoughly prepared, skilled to cope with all kinds of requests. So instead of giving only fish, we were short of fish, just as the apostles. We provided also the rods for fishing.
Thank you.
I think Father Marius explained very well, the situation. Just to stress that we are a big family. And this is really important. Probably this webinar is also expressing and focusing and stressing this feeling that we are coming from different parts of the world now, and also this feeling that we are collaborators in God's mission. Sometimes is what help us to keep hope alive. It's not our mission. If we are not saving anyone. We are participating in a mission. We are collaborators. We are happy to work together, to give a hand. But we are trying to be and to keep this hope alive, that it comes from this big family and especially from God.
Thank you. A question from Gillian Christie, and Father Alberto, this might be relevant for you. She's wondering how JRS is working with other interfaith groups and other NGOs for the greater good of the refugees, and how do you ensure there's no duplication of all these groups working together?
Okay. Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you for inviting us to share this, because from the very beginning, not only with the Ignatian family, I would say, or the Jesuit family, that we are working together, the different NGOs that we are not only on the Savior network, also on the JRS side, but also with other NGOs that are connecting with us, in the different countries. For example, in Moldova, We are collaborating with other NGOs there, and in every single place. Father Marius also can share most of the of the NGOs that are collaborating together. But I think the most important thing is that from the very beginning, also sometimes we are eager to go directly with the refugees. We have every week meetings with all the NGOs that are working not only on the field, but try to coordinate at European, at a global level, also with the Vatican, mostly every 2 weeks, to collaborate, trying to not duplicate, and try to get and to bring our capacities. When we say that we are trying to get a holistic approach, is that sometimes we know very well to do, I don't know if I'm saying like probably not a good example, but people maybe can go and do the food today at the meal, and one can bring the potatoes, and other people can cut the carrots, and all together can do a good meal. Is also what we try to do in this common response, especially within the within the Ignatian family, but also with other collaborators. And we try to coordinate, I would say, every week, every 2 weeks with them to support also each other.
That's really good to hear. Thanks, Father Alberto. A question from Bill Lally. Hi, Bill. Does JRS have any links to organisations in Russia that assist your message and support for an integration of refugees from the Ukraine?
I think this also is a good question. While for us as Jesuits, we have different missions that are all connected also, of course, but also in Russia, schools, institutions also working with us. You can imagine that it's not easy right now, like to face some of these collaboration. It means in terms do it publicly, and that can be published, I would say, but we are working together. We are trying to support the different mission, and also, well, I would say, I don't know if the integration, because it's quite early to talk about this right now. It's just the work is there and the people are moving, but I can tell you that Father Marius also can share that a lot of families in Ukraine, they have relatives in Russia, and on the other way around. So it's been quite a painful situation for the families, in general, for the people in Ukraine, where they are facing, and we are trying also to collaborate and try to get some support. It's not quite easy to do it, in terms of sharing in our web pages and doing these things, but it's something that is going on.
Thank you. A lovely message here from Lydia Williams. She says, thank you for the webinar, and it's amazing to hear about the Jesuit work in support of the Ukrainians. She's asking, how can we help? So is it just fundraising, or are there other things that we can do? Lydia says she comes from a Polish background, and her parents came to Australia to escape the World War II devastation. She's had fundraisers, but what else is there that they can do? Father Marius, might start with you.
Thank you. This is a brainstorming and a heart-storming question. Thank you for it. I'd say to be concerned in a positive way and to try to get in touch with a concrete family. I remember what Mother Teresa used to say, the Saint Teresa of Calcutta. Once you're helping a concrete person, you're saving the world. So try to be concrete. Not only to provide assistance for an anonymous amount of people, try to get in touch with concrete situations and see what can be done in that precise place for that precise person or for their families. And I think the question will come from this concrete approach.
That's a wonderful response. Thank you. Father Alberto, anything to add?
You know, I think Father Marius was saying what is really important. We have like a kind of motto in Spanish. We say that el roce hace el cariño. When you are in touch with someone, you know, love start growing in your life, in your family, something new, start coming. So I think this one is really important. Also, when I realized that when we face these situations and we are in touch, and it's just not migrants or refugees, but they have names, Alexandra, Mohammed, Alberto, wherever, they have like different names. Things change, and then when we listen some of these things in the metro or in the bus station or when we go to the doctors and we start saying of these prejudiced things that sometimes we repeat without knowing what is behind all the situation, the families, the stories. I think it's also a good way to share our own experiences, so we can move forward also in these directions. Of course, it's always good to support the local communities, try to support at different levels,
Thank you. I'm just conscious of time. A couple more questions. One from Mary Osborne is, what are the long-term strategies in place to eventually return the refugees to their homelands?
It's a good question. Thank you. It's the strategy that now we are facing. It's true that while the world is still on, it's not easy to, but there are, I think, like some key elements that normally you say we need to, we would like to help to reconstruct the country. For us it's really important, of course, education, to find a safe place, also the same thing. So some of the elements that we've been trying to work also is there. Another key word is reconciliation. It's hard to raise this question of this word right now, but we know that in the future it can be a really important thing. But we are, Pope Francis, he's always telling us, if we really think that we live as a family, is something that we need to face, that we are all brothers and sisters. So it's something that will come in the future. So for us, it's also important to try to imagine how can we set up also like a center or something that help to reconstruct, but also to help on this path on reconciliation. I think there are many other things that are now going on and ideas, but also we are trying to face a little bit the situation of the work and also the different steps. So while another element, and I think probably my last point is also for us at JRS, as Father Marius was saying before, is try to help them to feel at home in every place, in the journey, in the different journey. So if they want to go back to their countries, as we can imagine that most of us would like to do, also that they can feel the support from the places where they were staying for a while, like to be comfort, like to get in touch, that they can call you. It's amazing. The other day also in Bucharest, how some families were calling some of our companions, Bianca and other, so we are there here, happy to hear you, still in touch. And the same thing was in Lviv in Ukraine. One of the ladies that are working in our shelter, they are receiving calls from France, from Spain, some of the families to be thankful for the grace of being hosted.
Thanks, Father Alberto. We might just have one final question for you, Father Marius, which is from Colin Appelt, and he asks, are there many children that are arriving without an adult, and what is being done to prevent child trafficking?
Well, unfortunately, we also faced this situation which left us speechless. Meeting an 11-year-old boy carrying his trolley without any adult accompanying him is the most shattering image I have ever witnessed in these last 3 months. Now, there are legal difficulties, obstacles that are hindering us because there is no legal access for adoptions in case for Ukrainian children. We can temporarily find accompaniment and shelter for them, but the question of integration is still open. And we still reckon with the possibilities of entrusting these unaccompanied children to other families, to other Ukrainian mothers. This is the most feasible solution we envisage for the short term. But then there is another question that preoccupies me. We start to speak in Romania of the Ukrainians' exceptions. They were they took benefits of much more than other categories of migrants. There is no comparison with the tendency they took profit on during this crisis on respect with what happened 6 years or 7 years ago with the Syrian crisis. And now many other refugees and migrants from other countries are telling, why don't we take benefit on the same conditions in Europe as your neighbors had? This is one of the most important challenges for the following years, how to provide equal assistance when these tragedies are occurring, not only regarding the unaccompanied children, but also for all kinds of forcibly displaced categories of population. So the core message I want to deliver is how to build a common house in Europe, how to build the peace, because as the Pope Francis used to say, the God says in the blessing sermon, not blessed are the peacemaker, the peace dreamers, but the peacemakers. It's hard to build the peace. And as Father Alberto used to say, we have to be involved in this reconciliation process. Coordination and reconciliation.
You both have so eloquently shared with us this evening some really key messages for us to consider and remember. So thank you. As I mentioned earlier, our Australian Jesuit Mission family have shown an outpouring of love and compassion for the people that you're walking alongside and serving. Would you like to offer a message to them?
Yeah, thank you, Helen. I think in my case, on behalf of JRS Europe, especially the refugee families served, no? Also on behalf of our teams working intensively both in Ukraine and on the borders and in neighboring countries, I extend our deepest thanks to all of you who support Jesuit Mission Australia in one way or another. I think your support has been crucial in carrying out our mission to accompany, serve, and advocate for the rights of the Ukrainian refugees. We will remain committed to this mission, especially in this time of work and during the reconstruction of the country, as we mentioned. We have a long journey ahead of us. So we thank you and continue to ask for your generous support. Let me finish with an invitation from Pope Francis to all of us. No? Dear brothers and sisters, if we want to cooperate with our Heavenly Father in building the future, let us do so together with our brothers and sisters who are migrants and refugees. Let us build the future together. For the future begins today, and it begins with each of us. Lord, let us learn how beautiful it is to live together as brothers and sisters. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Father Alberto. That was beautiful. Father Marius?
Well, although Father Alberto summarized so well his message, I would like to say that after 2 years of suffering social distanciation, finally, with this crisis, we are all witnessing and experiencing the importance of social proximity. So thanking to all of you for your kind support, I simply stay in touch in the strong sense of the word. Stay in touch, being concrete and being close, regardless the geographical distance, because these challenges concern all of us. Thank you very much.
Father Marius and Father Alberto, I'm sure I speak for everybody who's with us this evening that we are with you. I think if I remember correctly, and you're not alone, so Wana, is that right? Father Marius, it is Wana. And you're not alone either. That's the Yana, I think. So I've learnt some Romanian words this evening, and Father Alberto, I wasn't so good at connecting the Spanish words that you shared before. I'll brush up next time.
Don't worry, Elena. Don't worry. El roce hace el cariño.
Say that again. Actually, Zach speaks Spanish. He's probably better. You can repeat it, Zach.
El roce hace el cariño. No? When we are in touch, when we touch each other, loves start now growing in our lives.
Beautiful. I don't need to imitate it, do I?
Thank you both very much for your time today. It's been a really wonderful blessing to have you with us, and we're extremely grateful that you invite us into relationship with JRS, but also the people that you're working with as well. And I would really like to also thank our Jesuit Mission family and all those people that are participating on the webinar tonight. This work isn't possible without you, and also our brothers and sisters who are living in other countries around the world who are also supporting the Jesuits' work through JRS Europe and the likes of Father Marius's work. So that brings our webinar to a close. I'd like to thank my companion in mission, Zach. Thanks again, Zach, for ensuring that all things work technically tonight, and for your participation as well. So Father Alberto and Father Marius, good luck and God bless. And you're not alone, and we aren't alone, because we are all in it together. We're one human family. So, and we will stay in touch, and we will find those concrete ways to take action and participate and support. So thanks very much, everyone, and good evening and good morning to our two friends in Europe. Thank you again. Good night.
God bless you. Good night.
Goodbye.